Uh, yeah, started.
Hi everyone.
Hi,
Hi Tarun. What's
hi,
up?
Chetan. Yeah,
How has your week been?
rough, very rough.
Rough. Very rough.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah, we thought of discussing today about like it's a very generic topic like social media, like uh, what kind of effect that it had on not just us, like usually on our generation.
Hmm.
It's like a collective catharsis of the
Oh my
generation rather
God.
than our personal experiences. So we try to make it as much as informative and rather than okay, let's start the discussion. Okay, Chaitanya, what do you think of like social media?
I think for the most part, it's harmful in the sense it encourages a very uh, like menial and very dumbed down behavior.
Mm,
And not in the sense like okay. So for example, take Instagram. I'm specifically talking about something like Instagram, where it's not just the textual exchanges that happen. Uh, my roommate is here judging me. Yeah, so most of these social media originated with people of some standing, like influential people or actors, performers, etc. And it used to be us people listening to them or agreeing, disagreeing with their views, and then
mm,
it became more of like it encourages more of people uh, behavior as in yeah, like you don't necessarily have to put in effort into learning anything, etc., and you can just voice your opinion with very little to no consequences. And the problem isn't that like so earlier, since a lot of these things used to not be monetized, it was
mm,
still very much like harmless to say. But now a
mm.
lot of people, they know that okay, if we say such things, they definitely don't mean it. They specifically say it that people get agitated and they respond a certain way,
It will
and then
create
they get a
that.
certain yeah, divisive audiences. Like they get a following of certain audiences, and the other side supports the other. I mean, some other guy comes up, he supports the other side, and then he gets the opposite side of the audience and so on.
Mm. Like
So
for
that is what the recent my recent thing, like observation of the
uh,
social media sphere has
which
been.
which is actually like very true because uh, social media, for example, let's take Facebook. It was created in the first place in Harvard University to rate the female students of the university. Like
Mm,
it landed Mark Zuckerberg in a great trouble.
mm,
It was created in order to make sure that we uh, we extract that reaction from the people. Yeah, it
mm,
has few good consequences. Like if it depends on the kind of people you follow, like you can get the information,
mm,
like for example the flow of information or news. Like
mm,
in our in our childhood we thought like most of the news agencies are some have some sort of integrity, like usually
mm,
they don't report false things. but
mm.
but when you read the history and when you read mm, like when you who is that?
Roommate. ಗಾಳಿ
Like,
ಸ್ಪೆಷಲ್ ಕನ್ನಡ. Yes.
yeah. Yeah, what I was yeah, usually the news flow, we used to think that like news is something, all the news that is coming from the news agency is something legitimate. The social media kind of like destroyed the legitimacy of traditional news outlets. Like I don't think in America it was like a huge phenomenon, like no one trusts like major news outlets. But in India also, like it is picking up, like they understand the kind of agenda that the news agencies are having. For example, consider that the at least we used to think that okay, in older times there used to be some kind of legitimacy or mm, truth to the news that they reported. But slowly we came to know that everything is through their perspective only, means through their through their ideology only. We are giving we have been given information from a limited area, so that we will think in certain way. For example, consider the guy who got Pulitzer Prize for reporting in 1934, I guess. He's a reporter, an American reporter from USSR. He purposefully suppressed the Ukrainian
Yeah, yeah,
Holodomor
yeah.
that is happening.
Yes, I remember. Holodomor,
What's
yes.
Yeah, I didn't remember his name, but he
Holodomor.
is very reputable journalist. Like, this is not a new
Mm.
phenomena, that we came to know that this is a new phenomena through this unrestricted flow of information through social media. But that is one of the advantages, that it means we have to choose like which information flow that we are getting access to. Instagram, I don't think it is kind of any positive effect as well. I don't think it has as much as positive effect as Twitter. Mm, Yeah, see, photos uploaded in Instagram, it should be in such a way that we have to pay attention for 1 or 2 seconds just just to like it. So it has to be more and more, kind of explosive whenever you see it, so that we will pay attention. The more and more we are
Ah,
exposed to that kind of explosive photos, the more numb we become. And this is like
see,
an increasing thing.
I think the issue is with monetization. So like the start social media thing with, let's say, Orkut. So a lot
Mm,
of these people, a lot of our people from our generation were just discovering this. So there was a sense of novelty. People used to spend time making their like profile pages and writing stuff about them, and kind of like a slam book but online.
mm,
So I think this, since it was not monetized, I think like that is my issue, because once it became monetized, then initially you had a surge of like authentic and original people, like let's
mm,
say Bhuvan, for example. So people who started making original content, then it was followed by a wave of copycats. So
mm,
like a bunch of people, whatever topic they took, they would make like a shit ton of videos on that,
mm,
right? And that would go on for, let's say, 3 months or so. Then now we're living in a time where, I mean, like there is a hype about everything. So let's say they will talk about such and such news,
mm.
right? For example, recently this Ladakh protest happened, right?
Yeah.
You'll find you'll find like 10 or 12 videos in any of the languages, in English, Hindi, whatever, but very few of them give you like what is actually happening, why these people are actually protesting, and the same can be talked about in just one short video. Like a 2-minute video will be informative enough to tell you what the scene is, why the people are protesting, etc., etc.
Mm,
So I think, yeah, so there is a hype about everything, and it caters to all sorts of audiences. So like people who are just looking for clickbaity stuff, there are
mm,
content creators for that. Then there are people who are only looking for let's say clothing, etc. Like they don't
um,
focus necessarily on the information being conveyed, but like the clothing and
Marketing.
fashion aspect of it. Yeah.
Mm.
So I don't think like the fact that this is mainstream is what I have a issue with, because see, earlier also you used to have like specific
See,
magazines,
see, I'm not
like
saying like
you
it
used
will
to.
be. It is mainstream, but the market is in such a way that it will spiral down in that fashion only.
What
Like,
are you saying? It's mainstream only.
yeah,
See, nowadays, because see, because of this, a lot of kids, they're considering it as a legitimate career,
mm,
and it's not just something like being talked
it
about
is
in.
also like, it is kind of. See, I'll tell you what. Like, I mean, it's kind of analogy only. Consider Weimar Republic,
Mm,
which is before the what call the
Third
Nazis took
Reich.
over the power of
Uh-huh.
Germany. Most people consider inflation to be something like you losing money. It's not like that. It is, let's say there are two employees. One employee will spend all the money that he got at the end of the month for drinking and everything, enjoying. Okay. Another employee cares for his family and puts it in a bank or some property.
So that
What
is like
inflation? What
classic
inflation does is,
capitalist and socialist behavior.
uh, what inflation does is basically it will destroy the wealth of the guy who is saving, who is doing the good thing actually, who is saving for his children and for the betterment of the society. And supports, like encourages the guy to spend it at the end of the month. You see, that's why the flip will happen so hard. Like people will, uh, what you call, uh, they will not believe in the system at all. That's why you see such a radical change. See, I consider the kind of rise of this social media influences to be this thing also. Let's say some guy who studied very hard and get into some kind of institution, like reputable institution, and having, like, he is the kind of ideal person, ideal citizen for any country. Like he gets into job, he pays taxes. Suddenly, this social media influencer come, who, if you put him in a market, is not very valuable, but because of this social media, will attain a stature that is much greater than this guy. You see the resentment of this guy, right? Like, I worked hard for 25 years, but still I'm in this position. Whereas this guy or girl is just getting this kind of wealth and what called rich, just because he or she is, he went into this social media, which most of you
And more
you see the
importantly, there is
uh,
nothing of value being created,
created, yeah.
right? It's not about like someone who's put in effort for 25 years and so on. Like I said, for example, someone like a content creator like Bhupan Bam,
Mm,
right? There is some value to the content that he makes,
mm.
right? What I think the problematic thing is, there is a lot of like this kind of behavior is incentivized where you are making content like it's like a pyramid scheme kind of thing, right? I'm
See,
making content,
I'll
I'm
give you one
influencing you.
another example. Whereas you know the channel 3 Blue One Brown, they make excellent
Huh.
mathematical videos, like one of the best in the internet. But he is not a
Mm-hmm.
Harvard mathematician. He is not equivalent to Harvard mathematics professor. They are in a
I
different
think
league.
he's MIT educated.
No,
He is
he is
MIT
MIT
educated.
educated, but the kind of classes that he teaches, he's not equivalent to MIT
Huh.
professor, and we don't value in the same way. MIT mathematics is in different range.
Okay.
Okay, at least like consider Nash. You
Nash
don't consider
equilibrium wala Nash.
Nash. He is not in the
That guy.
same category.
Uh,
At least we accept that. We accept this hierarchy, right?
okay. Okay. That.
Explaining differential equations is very different from proving Nash equilibrium or
Okay.
Noether's theorem.
Statistical theory. Yeah.
Uh, so we know how to put them in a hierarchy.
Okay.
Now consider.
I. But also, like for example, you talked about Nash equilibrium and Nash. Like, see, if you look at it, most of the historically, most of the like top-notch scientists have been quite poor.
Hmm,
Paul Erdos, for example, Erdos, like there is a thing called Erdos number, basically how close you are related to Erdos, right?
hmm, hmm,
He was basically supported by two of his students who became like professors, full-time professors. He was financially supported by them.
hmm,
So historically, respect and money are two different things. It's
hmm.
quite possible that someone is good at both. Like for example, Richard Feynman.
Yeah, so,
He's
see,
one
it
of the
is
few.
possible that someone will be fine in both things, but
Huh,
we okay, at least the mathematical
that
community knows how to value what things to value.
Nate, no,
Whereas,
the reason I said that is because so you said na there's like this kind of hierarchy. So
mm,
this hierarchy always exists in two ways. One is about the social aspect of it, like you said.
yeah, the
So
society
yeah, so
doesn't know
who
what to value most. That is
social
the only
aspect,
thing.
and second is someone who is aware of that field. So for
Mm,
example, science oriented, engineering oriented students will be in the first place aware about these people.
mm,
Only then you'll understand the hierarchy, right? But but like the general audience doesn't even know about them, right?
mm.
So, and the general audience is more, I would say that is more than 80% of the population.
Because
So
the social media incentivizes the persons who will like basically influence that general audience. These
true.
kind of exceptional guys will be considered lower than the
And there
social
will
media
be
influence compared to
there will be always random two or three guys, like people always associate Einstein with physics,
uh,
where in reality he was essentially a mathematician turned
mathematician.
into a physicist.
Physicist.
So
Like, yeah,
the
like
issue is not about
that thing, right? Like,
the,
everyone who says Albert Einstein is gay, I understand, like, okay, he's a great guy, he's a great thinker, and he has great ideas, but no one will speak about Hilbert, who proposed like
Hilbert transforms. Paul Dirac
not just
also.
Hilbert, not just
Paul
Hilbert
Dirac.
transforms. He is the one who he knows the equations. Actually, he know how to get to that path, but he don't
Uh,
want that credit because the idea was Einstein. So he want Einstein to study differential geometry. He know how to
hmm.
derive those equations from the ideas that Einstein got from one conference. But he said that
Hmm.
I will not be doing that. This is your idea. You go and study this topic.
You
And
should
then
work
Einstein
on it.
study were like 5 or 6
But
years differential geometry, and then came up with the equations.
but again, those people who are specializing in these topics, people who study, physics or like engineering in general, these people are still aware of these
Mm,
celebrities, so called. But I'm talking about like the general masses. So social media, first of all, has nothing to do with this. Especially, like at best, you can have like like NASA or ISRO or them advertising the things that they are doing.
mm,
This is the best that we can expect from like like scientific institutions and all. What I'm talking about is this like what kind of behavior is not just being incentivized but also celebrated, right? Because I would say like in the next 10 or 20 years, the people from let's say 2000 generation, the people or the values that had the major influence on us, let's say, like saving money and
mm,
what else, like socializing or doing good in school, you know or whatever, like those kind of values, people who advocated those values will no longer be around. They
mm,
will no longer be like they will no longer have a voice in the conversation. Like even you see people getting into places of power these days, you are getting more and more young, people in their 20s and so on. So what I'm saying is, what is like, since this kind of behavior is being accepted as
like,
commonplace, mainstream behavior,
mm,
legitimate, yeah. So after a point, you won't like, basically arguing against it would be hard.
mm,
Like one of the things you see, there was a comparison made between the presidential speeches from the time of America's independence. So they
mm.
noted like the kind of language they used has
Used as
drastically
drastically
reduced.
reduced.
The kind of complexity of language that they had, the
Like
way
for example,
they
if
talked
you
about.
look at 1940s presidents, they'll talk more about Roman history, like kind of law that they used
Mm,
and the heritage that they acquired. Now it was more or like
mm,
fist fights.
yeah. So if you take even in those times, the thing is the mass media, like the masses, did not have a voice
Mm,
essentially. It was very few selected elite people who had the voice and they dominated the conversation. But the masses, at least, like they looked up to it because they thought that, okay, this is something that elites do. This is something that we should aspire to be. So there was still this aspirational thing. But like these days, because the masses have the voice, uh, I mean, it's not being like, I have the issue with the mainstream being, you know, mainstream being diluted in terms of
mm,
the content that we're being exposed to. Yeah.
yeah, like, mm. Yeah, like it's not even like bad thing also. Like in some, for example, fields, let's say in history or like there are many fields where this kind of elitist kind of attitude should not be uh, is bad. Like for example, history, you see, like the standard
No,
historians of
I'm not.
India.
I'm not saying elitist. I'm saying like a lot of people led this aspirational lives, and in doing so, they would like. Uh, how do I say? Okay, so you see elite people like a different range of people,
Mm.
like most,
See,
and also
the-
most of the people back then were polyglots. Like they wouldn't necessarily confine themselves to one or two fields of specialization, which
mm.
has become completely opposite these days. Like
Yeah,
people, they
like
will specialize in something.
when you see scientists quoting like Newton as some kind of one who break the religious hold. Newton is quintessential Christian. It's not even like
Uh,
he just believed in. He want to live like Jesus. That's why he never married.
mm.
He want to live a life of Jesus. He's an alchemist
Mm.
he's in full time alchemist and a part time
Uh,
physician, like physicist.
this,
He's
uh,
not even like a mainstream guy.
So what I meant was like earlier, this kind of behavior was worshipped and people because like there was a sense of, I think even like me growing up, this kind of value still existed where people like no matter how much money you had, people still had respect for that kind of behavior. Like, you
Mm,
know, that you should always aspire to be better at whatever you do, like be it studies or sports or whatever. And
mm.
that kind of behavior is being like, yeah, people realize that they can make way more money, you know, selling stuff to others, selling stuff that has no value.
No value.
Uh,
Only
Basically,
value in community, not personal value. Like
the
for
value
example,
is only the value is only the audience, the number of audiences watching it. Like these
mm,
many million audiences are
like
watching it.
it will also like it will also create a false try to create a false perception on the, like for example, let's say if you are learning something about science or like relativity or something like that, it will require a large time of attention for you to understand like what grasp what are the things that are happening. But social media will make you think like it is kind of, it's kind of very simple task, kind of, reduce
Okay.
it to its elementary things. I'll give you one example. Like I was talking to some person, Jordan Peterson, right? Like
Mm,
she said like he's a misogynist. I was like, what is the misogynistic part about his comments?
mm, mm, mm,
She said like she said like women will put makeup because they want to look attractive. I was like,
mm.
he, he may be talking what he was talking was he was talking from an historical context, like why this kind
Evolutionary
of
context.
evolutionary
Yeah.
concept, why this kind of makeup thing was started from women. So for that, like it is like a clickbait. Okay, when you tell that in a
Mm,
statement, you think like okay, he's kind of a misogynist term. But when you have to listen to his like one and a half lecture to understand the context of it. You can give a
mm,
counter example telling that why men wear pants.
mm.
You can, there are many
No, I think the example that you gave was, see, first of all, I think you need to have a sense of like you need to have some self-awareness, or basically like this is something that if you've not done in childhood, basically,
mm,
like when someone says you don't take things at face value,
face value.
you try to understand what context they're coming, like
Mm,
what context this thing is being argued from. So for example, someone like Jordan Peterson, he specializes in psychology, clinical
psychology.
psych,
Yeah.
I think he's a
So
clinical
you have to put
psychologist.
many arguments. Like he has to play the devil's
Yes.
advocate.
Yeah, so these kind of arguments are more from like a philosophical and theoretical
Yeah,
standpoint. So he
standpoints.
makes these arguments, and then you try to explain, "Okay, okay, this is this what happened." And also, someone like him, he has studied history well. So yeah, I mean, again, like you need to have some sense of understanding or maturity or self-awareness to not take things at first value, at face value. Also, I think, see, this kind of, you cannot like you cannot expect this kind of behavior. So moderation and thinking and talking in terms of moderation, or being critical of something, like
Mm,
critical in the sense critically analyzing something, like when someone said this, how much of it is applicable or how much of it is just like nonsensical, etc. This kind of
mm,
thing is something that we used to do in schools, let's say,
mm,
debate and those kind of things. So like if you haven't done those things in your childhood, you will not at all even understand. One more thing, what I see is a lot of people, like I said about taking things at face value, right? I think in school times we would always have like some poetry, and poetry will have some figurative language, right? And the kids are supposed to answer them in a literal fashion.
literal fashion.
So yeah, for example, there was a poem in Hindi, and there was a line called like the line that went "Pet hai milkar ek."
Mm,
Like the guy is so thin that his stomach and his back seems
mm.
to have merged into one.
Marginal,
Right? So there was a simple question about this, and a lot of kids got it wrong.
mm,
They wrote something because that just suggested like this thing of rote learning, and this thing of just, okay, this is the question, this is the answer.
mm,
This kind of mindset, the kids knew basically how to crack the exams. They knew that, okay, at the end what matters is getting such and such marks in this exam.
mm,
So the kids would do that. They did not work on figurative language. like understanding figurative language, which
Just
is
give me 1
basically
minute.
what poetry is about. Yeah, yeah, of course.
Yeah, you're talking about figurative language.
Yes, was talking about figurative language. So yeah, so like as back then also there used to be like a give me a moment.
Hmm.
Yeah, so back then also there used to be a lot of people who would not figurative language, right? But I mean, there were a fair share of people who got figurative language, who understood this, and even like today, when I talk to those friends, I understand like they see things in a like similar way.
Hmm.
Like they don't take things at face value.
They know what to
But
take
these
literally
days,
and what
what
to take figuratively. Like they have that filter.
yes, so these days, and also because see, everyone has a bunch of issues they are passionate about, they are conscientious about. So these issues they find like any joke or any comparison or analogy in this regard is a no go for them. So like whenever someone makes a joke at on this kind of these kind of things, they're easily offended.
Hmm.
But then like yeah, these kind of issues, but then you can't expect people to because if they haven't seen this thing
Hmm.
since childhood, then also one thing that I find interesting is see a lot of there's this the saying that goes like a lot of comedians these days are being playing the role of journalists.
Yeah.
The journalists are creating a mockery out of the situation, like they don't barely give you any news, and it's the comedians who are actually giving you news in a sarcastic manner or something.
Hmm.
But I also think that a lot of people are getting like serious information from comedic outlets, so they are not at all getting like the
Like for
serious
example,
aspect
Bumblebee.
of it basically.
What's that Bumblebee? Yeah, that satirical magazine.
I don't know.
There was one
So I
magazine.
think like satire is fine as long as you
Babylon Bee,
understand the
sorry, Babylon
serious.
Bee, Babylon Bee.
I
There was
don't know
one
what you're
satirical.
talking about. Acha. I know of MAD,
I
what me
don't know.
mad or something. Like it was a comic book or something. Like it related to US politics and
Hmm.
like the actors actresses from there. Yeah, so yeah, I think because see, first of all, like whenever one thing becomes mainstream, a lot of things, their existence ceases to exist. Like they cease
Hmm.
to exist basically. So like when one thing like social media, which was a way like mm, kind of an outlet for people, or like escapism for some people
Yeah,
basically. So you
for the
watch
most part, it
comedy
is
and these
escapism.
kind of things
Uh,
for escapism from serious life. Now, since people are making money predominantly out of it, uh, there will be no incentive to pursue other careers, like other aspects of themselves, not just careers, right? So if you're not pursuing other aspects of life, then you will have a very narrow vision of life, and also you will be very
but
critical because
if you think that
everyone
this
has
is
a
not true, try to talking to an Instagram model, you will understand what you are talking about.
Instagram influencers,
About
not
influencers
model
and models.
influencers. Yes. Uh, Also, like Loki, I'm also envious of these people. Eh, It's in the sense because see, like every
Envious
little
because
thing they
of
do.
the amount of money and the reach they have, like the popularity they have, compared to their intellect.
No, not popularity. That is true. I don't care about popularity. It's about like every little thing they do is monetized, basically.
Ah,
That is
amount
the
of income they'll get.
because when people will be making money, they won't listen to you. They'll be like, why do I have to listen to you?
No, the people are also like.
That is the
I asked like few of my friends, like, will you consider your? Maybe you are not interested. Consider your favorite person. Will you
Huh.
listen to that person for 1 hour in a podcast? They won't. They can't. 1 hour is like too
Hopefully
much of a
people
time for
listen
them.
to hopefully people listen to us.
Listen to
It
the
doesn't matter if you are it doesn't matter if you're cooking or anything. You can just
exactly.
put on a pair of
Or
earphones and listen to us whatever
yeah,
we
like
are
the
doing.
attention span, like how it means if you want to get some information or some kind of perspective, you should spend time. You cannot get that in 10-second
Mm,
reel or something like that. But
mm,
people are tuned in such a way that they are going for that only for the most part. You see two kinds of streams. One is this Joe Rogan stream where like you can do 3 and 4 hours podcast, but still you have a loyal fan base. But
mm.
you see comparatively, like there are many people who is as influential as Joe Rogan in Instagram or other social media platforms who don't do such kind of stuff, who do like very short videos, like they are very
Mm, mm, mm.
explosive kind of this thing.
I think they're two different audiences. It's like talking
Mm.
about, book reading, but like it's equivalent to saying book readers versus movie
Who
watchers.
watches,
They're different audiences. Like people always compare these things. Like, the book was better, the movie is better. But
mm.
we forget that the
Audience are
audiences for
different.
both are different.
Uh,
Audiences are different. Yeah. I think, yeah, this also, but someone like Joe Rogan, I think he's one of those guys who you will not find much on social media,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, most see
Similarly,
you
Bill,
see all the podcasters, great podcasters, Joe Rogan, Lex Friedman, and like
huh,
top podcasters. You don't find them in social media much. They don't do much for
but that
in social
also,
media.
but I also think that is reflective of the kind of audiences they have.
Mm,
Like a lot of people, especially actors and aspiring actors also, right? Because like as a career as an actor is very uncertain. You
mm,
don't know what your next gig is going to be. It all depends on like what your current perception is, right? So
mm,
for them, it's essential to have this kind of how do I say? Yeah, this kind of clout. It's necessary for them, right? And also, I think, one a reason why I don't like this a lot much is because basically you're watching other people build their careers,
mm,
right? Like, oh, okay, so a lot of, like I said, like there was a first wave of comedians, second wave of comedians, third wave of comedians, like original. Then the people who started mass producing their videos, then people who started, giving you absurd content.
mm,
So what these people are doing is like one issue I have with them is they themselves consume quality content. Like when you see them in other people's podcasts, they will talk highly of, I used to listen to this guy's podcast, or I used to watch these kind of movies. But the content they are serving you is trash,
mm.
right? And a lot of people who haven't listened or watched other quality content, if you talk to them, they'll be like, what's wrong with this? I'm like, it's not that it's wrong, it's that there is so much of it. That
Mm.
is the problem, right? The same is regurgitated again and again, and you'll find the same content. Okay, I'll tell you what happens on my social media feed. A lot of people will tell you that it will show you more of what you're watching or what you're interested in,
Interested in,
right? I don't think that is necessarily true because, see, let's see how this works, right? Somewhere like on Instagram or whatever. Like, it's not necessary that you will simply blow away topics which do not interest you. You will take a moment to see what it
see
is,
what
right? Whether if you're listening to someone's opinion, let's say it's a video clip of someone saying something, you'll give it a moment to listen to it.
mm,
At the end of it, like oftentimes you will realize, like, okay, this is a trash stuff. Let's just move on, right? But you still have spent some time on it,
mm,
and they use that as a metric to determine what you're interested in watching, right? That is one thing. Second thing, they know, like for example, for guys, they give you a certain kind of like adulterated content, not
mm.
adulterated content, and they deliberately, like, no matter what you try, you block those accounts, write those keywords. I don't want to see posts containing these
These
words.
words,
Somehow or the other, you will still be exposed to these contents. Like I used to these whole feminism and trashing this and trashing that, like both ways,
mm,
trashing feminists for the reputable work they are doing, and also people who are going hard against people who are just trying to do their daily work, right?
mm,
They just yeah, so both kind of content you will find in abundance. So I tried to like get rid of that, but still despite all my efforts, I still get these kind of content in my this kind of content in my feed. And
Yeah,
it's only moments until you hit that, like some quality content, something that makes you happy, etc., etc. But then soon you'll find something which is like
and
frustrating and just it's like, why am I watching this?
yeah, like this is like the first episode. Like we talk about in this first episode, like we focus more on like what is the influence of this kind of social media on larger society. The second, we will
Hmm.
discuss more about like what is the personal effect that the people are having because of this social media. Like this,
Okay.
yeah, um, yeah. We will go for the second episode then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go.